Joseph and I were talking about how we mostly write in sequences rather than individual poems. And I thought I would begin the second set with a sequence called Vega. Vega, I don't know if you need this reminder, is the largest star in the constellation Lyra. And the story of Lyra in the Western tradition is that when Orpheus was torn apart by those he'd slighted, his lyre was flung into the sky and became that constellation. Interestingly, in other traditions, a very similar story associates with that constellation, a constellation which is always about someone who has been lost and is lost again. The poem draws on a number of different kinds of source, most salient perhaps that story and the Orpheus story, but also Freud's essay on Gradiva's, Janssen's Gradiva, which is where he discovers the unconscious through a young man who rediscovers someone that he thought had been lost. There's a little epigraph from Eugenio Montale's motets. Lo sai, devo ripeterti e non posso. I know I have to lose you again, and I can't. Lyre. Your late star tracks back to its appointed place. All the dissevered points of light, breath notes, slipped from phase. A bone lyre in the dark, stringless, still in the dark, heart-framed, bone-horned, wishbone struck with promise, bird-toned in the morning hours. At your touch I strum, breasting the dark. A trilling wire in the breath slices what remains. Vega. Ashen seed laid out on the lintel. Whatever door passed through you, nothing flowed outward. Unmourned mother clot, clenched in the gorge. No tear breaks in you. One tooth only struck from your mouth, unyielding. A brass jug in the entry branded the brown hydrangeas, brittle petals on the edge of parting, utterance stopped in its neck. This bone tattoo rattles the dice on the drumskin. All the enumerated outcomes, star scores, gauged on the membrane. This is your world out of water. A mud slick at the lip, indifferent, mouth crammed with seed. Fruitless fodder in a noisome place, full of rains and naming. As a lidstone lifts and settles, I live on, penumbra of your wounded bone. First incision of the soft issue, soft stuff under my hand takes shape from me, tissue of misvoiced prints, you who do not fit, slashed, cast off, threads sticky with seam, rubbed wrongwards. The crystal fluting, flights of wounds, amber ichor, aligned on the workbench, dredged clear. The fingernail ring tests for the voice drill, the shrillest cry stoled at the rock face. Cinder paths of singing school, gloomy with broom green, print pressed in black ash, negative dye moulding the rain dish. And suddenly, as light broke through, it was as if the wind moved as light scattering motion along the path, and then the bright shower, white shadow fading in the light. Days' residues ferried from the banks, the salted ropes bite and torque, a knot raft flotsoming over. A door slammed in the night, shadows adrift, hazing the fanlight. A tissue curtain blown across. On the bee stair, by the web shreds, signal drilled, knotted in forgetting. This cascade from the latest call, almond drift on the air, stress lattice, dance net, dying out on the way down. Irishish, grey, the sudden swan duo creaking incisors the slate, hinging the door you are. Others step through it, stories in hand, word-burdened, weirdened with telling of numbers, brandings. From the pain archive, in the dimmed room, mole-eyed in the half-light, in the Klieg light, blinking. The silence incomplete, broken by the sobs and cries of prisoners. Tapping the fissures in the passive weight, what sleeping rocks dream of, space and stone. I opened my mouth and was unwon. So many mouths leaving their lips in me. Date-scored gash, the pursed scar sung into the seaming. What speaks through wounds sifted the white stones, and I was undone with responding, nonplussed and tongueless in a body full of holes. I drew a thin thread through pain, deep in the hide, in the gathering mole work, blindly, a sharp inhalation of breath through the teeth. So, backstitch in the spine, slashed with his own strings, hooded, through-sounded, lip split into singing. La tongue, vacant mouth, crammed with song. Is this a voice you call? A person? Or a thing? An almond stone, unstrung, let loose off the eddy. The voice adrift, graining the slick with his drag. Your same star fades at the shoulder. Cypress and pine fret the skyline. This translucent shade fading in brightness, rain wheel pressed in the ash path. You, who are constellation, clearing, beat, play this in dismembrance of me, in pieces for my unforgetting. The bone fork rings through. After that, I thought I'd just read two little chasers and then end with another sequence. Chasers, I say, because these are very short poems from a volume called Change of State. Carbon, time, and again. You rejoin, there was a life, and you resist, there. The onion tears, pare back address to the encore. From a charged air you split. Out it must, the door ajar. One thing I forgot to say in introducing Vega was that in thinking about any kind of Orpheus story as a structure for a poem, I suppose that the only way to think about hell in contemporary terms is to think of somewhere like Guantanamo or Abu Ghraib. And the thing that perhaps connects the little sequence that I'm going to read now to Vega with which I suppose it's in some ways continuous, would be that question of what is being done to human bodies in the hell that is prisons. The poem I'm going to read now is called Codolith. Probably most of us have forgotten what Codolith was. Codolith was a mode of reproduction, a mode of printing in which you stripped from a plastic negative sheet onto a stone, a lithostone, and printed from there. So it's obviously been totally outmoded by computer technologies and so forth, but it still remains for me a beautiful metaphor of light writing in stone. So the title of the sequence is Codolith. I was sitting on what became this sequence for quite a long time, not knowing what to do with the handful of material I had. And one or two of you will understand what I'm talking about when I say that I had a dream, and I dreamed of an Irish poet called Maurice Scully, who's a good friend. And in my dream, I stole lines from Maurice's work. And Maurice's work is very spread across the page, very open form. And in my dream, I stole some lines from him and compacted them into the middle of the page, and suddenly when I woke, I knew what to do. So these are very compacted little poems. And in order to acknowledge my debt, I start with an epigraph from Maurice. "Where to?" said a voice. Then the voice went away, by which, as if time, in a sea, a dark mood, over the rocks, where there are no rocks, finishes you. Maurice Scully's poem, Livelihood. Fields. So livid a gleam along the rim. White winds descended from the shattering fields. Runnels groove the mantle. The folded slab breaks down the gradient. Numbed in the song they sing, lay down the possibilities. Flesh knits its meshes into the grain of the stone. Dry wash. Dead wind off the Fang Range. Strange weather. Strange witness in the teeth of it. Bit and grit in the fantail. Did you think we would leave and not leave bone in the downdrift? Degrading. Silting. Grit angel, sweeping the wash with your wing. Petroglyph. Skin burrs. The thumbs impress the fibers, finding the grain of the stone. Such transfer, the light writing turned ghost flesh, mapped in stone. Did we remember the gifted one, the 4 staves of its opening? Nothing is given. It gives and is gone. Face. What the rock face encloses. My skin imprinted with its warm relief. Sugarlift pockmarks. Open the stone book. Light etches its ridges. The furrow archive sanded away. Scar tissue stares into the tender slate. Mantle. Rock breaks the living. The living wrap stone with all their new brutalities. Root, blast, frack. In the breaker's yard, bodies bend in the wind. We rattle their bones in the crown of a hat. We rattle. We raffle the mantle. It shears like a sea on the shore of the living. Spine. Januarized runnels bear down, open back into this thing they carry forward. Acrid taste of burnt treacle or some other unworldly afterglow. Failed wings of the shoulder shrug pain to the floor. It slips down from the spine. Easy. Easy on. Casket. Hurt bleeds into another's rib, another beat, a casket sealed into the cleft for future incubation. lidless eye turned into the handprint, fixed in sand, night compact, pressed into the socket. Think it a fold, a wrinkle, graved in the skin. Salt. Salt ventures underfoot, a thread trodden back into the slab, dull savour to the tongue, reminding a plain wind dresses the stone. Histories scored into its face. It stands out from the dark room, white remnant of the promised flight. What you do give to be of. Vitruvian. Vitruvian. Ridiculous. Braced in the crevice, the aperture shrinks your horizon. Black marble curtains for you, for you. Quartered in stone, water drawn, hacked into with light piers, the white bits ciphered across the slab. Percussed, sprung. A thing breaks beyond naming, in the grit depot, in the shingle archive. Blood meets with its congealing. Your debrided palm greets the horizon, sky prism, shredding the light face, late into the farness, into the violet wash, over fracture and fold. Copestone. The coping weighs on his shoulder. Turn at a stroke to the eyeball, welled up with minding. What if the thing should sing then, sing out from the naught rim, spelling with numbers, a jabber, flush to the finish. Your history. Drapes sweep the place of its leavings. Chamber. Some pause and then resume. Erratic rock adrift on the mantle. What are you doing here? Stone chamber voided with stone. The burden bears down on the bone. Shin ache, joint skew. Come dance with me into the black sight. Come sing with me into the dry dark, into the wind's teeth. Ad lib, ad lib, ad lib.